Hello and welcome back to the Sporting Fan Podcast. Today I'm going to speak about round one in the Super Rugby. Now, we've just completed round one and I've got to say there hasn't been too many surprises in it. And what I mean by that is people go, oh, what about the Chiefs game that could have been... People say, oh, that was a surprise with the results and, with how they got up to a flying lead against the Crusaders and then the Crusaders only ended up winning by 4 points. The Chiefs ended up winning by 4 points over the Crusaders. The reason why I say there hasn't been too many surprises is that the speed of the games so far, you can really tell the difference between the New Zealand games and the Australian games. And people will say, oh, I'm just being negative and, but it's just being, and that's as in negative on the Australian teams, but the Crusaders and Chiefs game, even the Hurricanes, the New Zealand and the Highlanders and even Moana actually impressed me in comparison to how they've improved on last year. They just played at a different speed. Like the Hurricanes got up by 30 points over the Force, and that was playing in Perth as well. They won 44-14. So, and then I watched the part of the Chiefs and Crusaders game, and then straight after that was the Brumbies and Rebels, and the difference between the two was it was like watching a proper professional game. That's the Chiefs and Crusaders game, and then going back to basically, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe the Brumbies and Rebels game because I think if you said, "Oh, it was an average first grade game," it would be almost a slap in the face to the first graders. Like there was a lot of drop ball. There was a lot of not respecting possession. The Brumbies ended up blowing the Rebels away, which is what most people expected. Most people expected the Brumbies to win well, which is what they ended up doing, winning 30-3. But it was just a difference between them. It really shows what happens when you invest in your juniors, respect your juniors, and you have people that really respect the jersey. And this is something that I keep coming back to in a lot of these podcasts, right? The New Zealand, for a country that's only got, about 5 million people, right? They keep churning them out. And, this is where there's a difference between Australia and New Zealand. Super Rugby, Australia still has a mentality that they will come to us. Whereas New Zealand Rugby still has a mentality, well, that's over there, over in New Zealand, is a religion. They still have it where they want to keep improving. And they realise that they don't have a right on it. See, this is what basically it was happening with... and again, I know this is something I also do a lot in the podcast, mixing up my codes, but I know the Penrith in the NRL had a similar kind of problem as Super Rugby did in Australia. Like Rugby in Australia had. They were a mess like Rugby Australia, and then Gus Gould for... I know a lot of people give him Gus Gould a lot of slack, how he handled the NRL level at the Panthers, but at the junior level at Penrith, he just kept bringing all those blokes through, right? He provided a system, and yes, while it took longer than what they intended, but if it wasn't for him, they would have gone into liquidation. They would have gone bust. He came in through his connections with James Packer. He brought Packer gave them a loan. He set out what the plan was. Got the juniors, and now they have like a lot of their players coming through. Came through, and look at blokes like Nathan Cleary, Jerome Luai, who I know has since left the club. Stephen Crichton, which again I know left the club, but all these guys, they all came through. Jerome Luai is of course leaving at the end of the year, and Stephen Crichton left at the end of last season. But they just see it where they heavily invested in these blokes, and these blokes, they came through the system, and it may have taken 10 years. But that's something that rugby in Australia needs to do, because let's break down each game. The Chiefs and Crusaders, that was played at a frenetic speed, right? It was the set piece was really good, really strong. And off that they could build a platform, right? And then the Brumbies and Rebels, the set piece was just not quite at the level. And, and then getting to the ruck, being able to get the ball out wasn't quite as good as it could have and really should have been. Like, the Crusaders and Chiefs are able to flow, and even the Crusaders, like they had quite a few players out. They've also lost a few players. So, for example, they've lost obviously Sam Whitelock. He's retired. They've also lost their 5'8" Richie Mwanga, who's gone overseas. They also had players like Lee Harpenny, who's a big signing over from Wales. He was out. Will Jordan was out. David Davili was out. Ethan Blackadder was out. Like they had quite a few players out. Like it was nowhere near a full-strength team for the Crusaders, and yet they were still able to be competitive in the game regardless. And very nearly, they were actually up in front up until the last couple of minutes, despite being down at half time. Something like, I think it was 24-10 or something like 27-10, and then and they actually got up 29-27 towards the end of the game. And then the Chiefs kicked a couple, 2 penalty goals in the last about 5 minutes. And see, that's the difference. Like they play at that speed. They got that skill where, no matter which team or which, they've always got that next man up mentality. Even if they have, like I still remember. The Super Rugby season had started, and in 2020, and this was just prior to the lockdowns. The Super Rugby, there was a game between the Chiefs and the Waratahs, and people go, "Well, it's 4 years ago." The matter still is in place. The Waratahs had. Chiefs had 8 players, something like 8 All Black players out, and they still won the game by, I think, over 30 points. So that's where they always have, the Chiefs have the next man up. Now, the Brumbies, they had a very good, while they had a very good win, I just think if they played against either the Crusaders or Chiefs, I think they would have struggled. I don't know. They could play, but I don't know if that was just simply a case of they coming down to the Rebels level. Like, admittedly they win by 27 points, comfortable win. It's hard to be critical, but I hope that's the case for them. That it just happened that they came down to the Rebels level, because. I don't know. They could be they could struggle. It was just like the speed in comparison to that game to the Crusaders game was a lot slower. The Hurricanes, again, it was just, they just blew the Force away. Like, this was expected. The Force, they've had a couple of signings, but it's just they don't just seem to click over there. They, no matter who they bring in, it always seems to be one step behind. I really hope that the Force do well, though. Like, it'd be great for the game in Western Australia and Australia in general to increase it to a level where they can get that strong foothold over there. I know it's a strong AFL culture over there, but if they can somehow get it into the schools, that's the biggest thing. Bring it into the schools, bring it into get club rugby going, and get it. That's where I think the Force can get better. The Hurricanes, like what I was saying with the Chiefs and Crusaders, they have the next man up mentality. They're always going to have strong turnout. Like Artie Savia, I believe, was out in this game. An absolute beast. One of the World Player of the Year last year. Probably in the top 3 back rows in the world, anywhere in the world, if not the best. So that they have that next man up mentality. The Blues and the Drua, I watched some of this game, and just the Drua. This is a difference between the professionalism, and this is no slight on the Drua, but I think once they get the professionalism in their game, they will be really, really hard to beat. They'll be really strong. It's just that the Blues have become, they're in that New Zealand system, and that this wasn't. I don't think this one was based on ability. I think this one was just on professionalism. The Blues, they just go, they just go through the gears. They just have that system in place where they just go bang, 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 and they're relentless. They always come at you, and even if you're marginally off, these New Zealand teams, you could be 1% off. Might not even know it, but 1 or 2% at this level against these New Zealand sides, it's so hard to beat them if you're marginally off, because they're on their game all the time, and they could whack up a score 34-10. Very good performance by the Blues from what I saw. Very professional. It's going to be, the draw. They hung in there. They kept coming at them, but it was just that little bit, they had the chances, but the main difference between the Blues and the draw was that the Blues took the chance, and unfortunately the draw didn't. The draw, I reckon, in years to come, they will get that eventually. When they, hopefully, they'll be able to bring in a few more of their, bring home a few of their players. It's going to be difficult simply because the draw just can't pay the big funds that France and New Zealand and England and Japan are able to pay, I should say. But hopefully one day they will be strong. Blues, they look dominant. They're gonna I reckon it's really gonna be 3-horse race this year, like it was last year. I reckon it's gonna be between the Blues, Chiefs, and Crusaders again. I reckon it's gonna be one of those. I know it's only early days. It's only round 1, and it's always going to be. You never can really say in one round after one game, because there's always injuries. There's always suspensions. Players coming back, players coming and going. So it's always going to be hard. But all things being equal, I think it's going to be hard for the. It's going to be one of those 3s. I reckon it might be Chiefs here. I think 7 years off or whatever it is with the Crusaders just running dominant, running roughshod over the opposition. it might be coming to an end this year simply because they have so many players out. But look, one of the contenders, they only got beaten by 4 points with a lot of players out. The Blues and Crusaders, North versus South. That's always going to be a tough game. Chiefs and Blues, just down the road from each other. That's going to be a big game. So those three are going to be really hard to beat. The Hurricanes are always going to be a bit of a smoky. They always could be there as well. The Highlanders and Moana game. This game was actually a really impressive game, actually. This is, I think, one of Moana's best. The first half, I think, was one of their best halves they've had that I've seen them play in Super Rugby. They were actually ahead at halftime. They were playing really well. It looked like they may even go on to win. I think they were up by. They kicked a penalty goal early in the second half, and they were up by about 7 points. And you're like, geez, they could upset the Highlanders, but just like I was saying with the Blues, they're in that New Zealand. The Highlanders are in that system where that New Zealand system that grinds you down. They just go to work, and the Highlanders came charging back in that second half, scored 3 tries, ran over the top of Moana in that second half, and ended up winning by 14 points. But this was almost, in my opinion, it was between this and the Chiefs game that was the game of the round, because Highlanders were made to work for this. It was not an easy game, and they played really, really well. Both teams, Highlanders had to really work for this, and that's what I like. And the skill came through at the end, and those are the kind of games I love. Right? I love those kind of games, and those grinding. Really work for your tries. Don't just while it's nice to see long range tries and that, which this actually had. It was actually one of the best tries I've ever seen in this game. If you ever go back and watch a game, you should see one of the tries. It was a dummy that you had a long distance try. So this game really had it all. So as much as we want to see try fests and tries from everywhere, this was a real arm wrestle for the majority of the game, and the Highlanders just ran away with it in the second half. Which leads me to the last game of the round, Reds and Waratahs, and good God, this was an awful game. Just like the Rebels and Brumbies, both teams dropping the ball, silly kicking, aimless kicking, really. It's just, I don't know where to even start with these blokes. Honestly, I think the less I say about this, the better, because it's so hard to explain. The Waratahs just seem to be going from bad to worse. I don't know. The Reds did enough to win the game, but I think there was more the Waratahs beat themselves. I was saying to guys at work who follow rugby, and we all said the same thing. They beat themselves. It's so depressing to watch. They play the same. They've used the same tactics they've had for 20 years, but the problem is that the blokes that they have now have about half the ability of the blokes that they were able to do it with 20 years ago. They just, they're beating themselves, and I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a long season for the Waratahs. I hope not, because they are my Australian team. I love, being a Sydney boy. I want the Waratahs to do well, but they're just not going to get to that point where they need to be until they have a change of attitude, and until that happens, I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a long few years for the Waratahs. I can't see how things are going to turn around for them. I hope they do. I hope they're going to get a few wins, but yeah, it's just going to be tough. The like previewing next round, they've got the Crusaders. I believe all games are in Melbourne next week, and I just can't see them beating. Like, I can't even see them coming close to the Crusaders. Like, I reckon the Crusaders would need to have about 20 blokes out to have them have any chance of winning, which isn't going to happen. Like, they could play probably their B team and still win comfortably. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think it might be a tough couple of first rounds for the Waratahs. The Highlanders and Blues game next week should be a really good game. I think the Blues will run away. I wouldn't say run away, but I think it will be comfortable. I think it will be a good game for about 60 minutes. And then in the last 20, I think the Blues will just wind the Highlanders down and end up winning by probably 10 to 15 points in that game. Rebels and Force, I think, to be honest, this is probably going to be looking at all the games, I think this might be the worst game of the round, unfortunately. It's going to be a woeful game. Can't see them winning. Maybe the Force. If I was to put, Force, I'd probably, win, but it's going to be a pretty ordinary game. Probably the game with the most passion in this round will be Moana versus the Draw. That's going to be I reckon that's going to be tough, physical. I reckon they're just going to go in there and they're going to bash each other, which that's what I love. I love those kind of games, and I really hope that's going to be tough, physical. Let the boys, as the old expression goes, let the boys play. I reckon they're just going to go in and absolutely bash each other in that, which I love. Then you got the Crusaders and Waratahs, which I think this is just going to be an absolute massacre. It's like, I think this is going to end up in, I reckon the Crusaders are going to get up by anywhere between 30 and 50 points in this. From what I saw against the Reds, I think this is going to be ugly. That's going to be a big win for the Crusaders, I think. Chiefs and Brumbies, I think the Chiefs will get up in this. I think it's going to be a similar game to the Highlanders and Blues. Maybe tight for 50 to 60 minutes, and then the Chiefs will run away with it in the last 20. I reckon the Chiefs will get up in that game by 15 to 20 points. Comfortable. I reckon it's going to be comfortable. It might be close, it might be 10 points, but I just think the Chiefs are just going to score a few late tries and win pretty comfortably there. The Hurricanes and Reds, so I think the first half is going to be close. But unlike the Blues and Highlanders, where I was saying about 60 minutes, both the Chiefs and the Blues are going to run away in their games. I think this is going to be a whole second half where it's going to be the second half. The Hurricanes are going to win this. I reckon they're going to run away with it. It's going to be interesting. I hope these games are going to be close. But I just think where the New Zealand teams play against the Australian teams, it's going to be a few. There's going to be the wins for the Australian teams. I think are going to be few and far between, and I think it's mainly because the New Zealand teams beat themselves by getting themselves sent off, rather than and they beat themselves rather than the Australian teams on skill. That's just my ability. Or they just keep giving away stupid penalties. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people think that is being harsh and they're not going to agree with me, but that's just my opinion. I'm always interested to hear what you think, but until next time, see you then.